Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Nick Sirianni's not great. We know that. He needs to stop talking. But when it boils down to it, you have a quarterback that is pointing the finger a lot more than he is pointing the thumb, and he's not doing it in a productive way when you're trying to hold guys accountable. And that's a problem.
Chris Carlin says it's more Hurts than it is Sirianni that's the issue with this team. We'll get one thought every game, and, of course, extra thoughts on the Eagles' loss in Tampa to the Buccaneers. Casey Joyner from The Athletic is here as we take a look at the Eagles. 33-16, they lose in Tampa. The score really not indicative, Casey. The game was ugly. It was ugly as the Eagles lose, and we'll, of course, bring in Casey Joyner from The Athletic for one thought every game, as we do each and every Tuesday and Thursday, and they're brought to you by Cooper University Healthcare. They're doing something extraordinary for families down the shore at Cooper University Healthcare, and there he is. If you're watching the live video on the X platform and YouTube, Casey Joyner is with me here on the Sports Bash. Well, Casey, Thursday, we look at one thought every game. We talked about what we thought the Eagles, it didn't go the way they planned it. A lot of short, quick passes. And today, Vic Fangio said, we were a little surprised by their game plan. Should they have been?
Yeah, frankly, I can make an argument both ways. You'd think that they would go vertical, but Baker Mayfield was, He was 28th in vertical passes per game coming into that contest. It's right around there. He's near the bottom of the league. Because I wrote about it for The Athletic and seeing why in the world are why in the world aren't the Bucs throwing the ball more? How's it impacting the receivers from a fantasy perspective? And they should have seen that. These guys are dink and dunking. The dink and dunking wasn't the problem. The game planning wasn't the problem. It's, can you guys tackle? Can you look like you want to tackle? Bill Belichick has said many times that his dad and Bill Parcells both told him the most important thing on defense is to have 11 guys who can tackle, that you better have 11 tacklers. If you don't, you're going to lose games. And that's what happened. They don't tackle well. That's how you fall behind 21-0. They throw dink and dunk throws.
Yeah, so you're down 21-0. Nick Sirianni said, hey, we were down 21-0. We only ran 6 plays. What did you think of what they were trying to do and what happened on offense with Philadelphia's game plan there? Obviously, they're down Lane Johnson, A.J. Brown, Smith, Britton Covey. They're down their top 3 receivers plus their right tackle. But offensively, they got nothing going. I got the impression once they started to fall behind, I think it impacted the way that they ran their game plan. It's hard to say when you only run that many plays, but here's the thing. If you fall down 7-0, there are coaches. I did a study years ago where, like Mike Shanahan, one time, anytime his team got down 7-0, he just banded the run and he started to throw immediately, even though he's a run-based team. You don't have to abandon the run when you get down 7-0 to 14-0 early in the game. You still have 8-9 possessions left, even operating in that type of an offense. So you can still slow things down, maybe make that 10. You've got possessions left. You're down 2 possessions. You got the better in defense, but you don't have to abandon it. I got the impression once they fell behind 14-0, the Eagles were like, okay, hey, we got to try and change our game. It's like, no, you really don't. You can still do the same thing you came into the game planning to do. You can't get rattled by it. And I got the impression the Eagles were getting just a little bit rattled by that. Yeah, you look at I want to get your thoughts on the game that Hurts is playing here. I mean, are we looking at Hurts? You heard what Chris Carlin said before you came on. He said, hey, too much blaming of the coach and people looking at the coach. Do you look at Jalen Hurts and saying he's got to be better?
Yeah, when they were making the comeback there, they got down and they were driving and the 25-yard line, and he's in the pocket and trying to make a play, and then the ball gets stripped and they get the ball back. That's kind of like the end of the comeback. It's one of those things where you're in that kind of a comeback situation, you really need to make sure you're protecting the ball every time. You're in 4-down territory. You don't, if it's 4th down, I get it, but you've got to be able to protect the ball in those situations. You got to be able to do other things, and I still don't think they're using him in the ground game enough. I mean, Barkley had that great run, although it was just a terrible, terrible play by Tampa. They didn't play that run properly, that 159-yard run that Barkley had. But I think that they need to incorporate his rushing skills in there. I think that he wants to be a passing quarterback, and they need to get him back to say, well, how about you be Lamar Jackson, and you can still run the ball 75 times a year, and you can throw for 30 touchdowns. Don't think you're just going to be a drop-back passer. And I think there might be some pushback. If I had to guess, there's some pushback behind the scenes as to how things want to go there. And Hurts just needs to get on board with, hey, we need both your skills. We can't just have you as a passer.
Well, that and, Barkley, he has, you just alluded to the big run that he had to start the second half.
they had one carry after that the rest of the way. He led the team with 84 yards, but it seemed that even when they got down 14-0, he was not a part of the offense at all.
No, he wasn't. And again, there's nothing. I'm not knocking what the Eagles were doing, but on the running play, there's some bad. They didn't play it properly. The Bucs defense didn't. And then if you do it against Barkley, you're going to give up big gains. It's like, okay, well, how about you make sure that you try and do those things again, because he had 2 carries by the 5 minutes left in the second quarter. I mean, yeah, you're not getting that many offensive plays, but that game plan needed to be about Barkley and Hurts, and it needed about those two. Grinding the ball out and getting 30, 35 plus carries. That's why I picked them to win last week, because I figured that's what they're going to do, and they're not doing that. I thought you'd see a kind of game plan that would incorporate the things that they do. In fact, I really think that you can't make big changes in midseason. I think the Eagles would do well to go look at what the Ravens are doing with Jackson and Derrick Henry, because they're finding ways now. They're starting to get into a groove of, this is how we integrate Henry's skill set with Jackson's skill set, how we can have certain types of running plays and how things can play off each other. You've got to meld them together to get a very careful way you got to do it. I think they need to look at that, because right now it seems like they're saying Hurts is going to be a passer, and then we're going to have him do some runs, and then Barkley's going to do some runs. That's not complementary. They're not having the things work together with each other. And when you've got competing game plan elements, what happened last week is what'll happen if you give up some plays in defense.
Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's get into what we saw on week 4 of the NFL, starting with New Orleans and Atlanta. Atlanta comes back. They're down. They come back. They win it at home, 26-24, and the Saints have lost 2 straight, and Atlanta is back to 2-2.
Saints are not as good offensively as we thought. Carr is looking like, well, Derek Carr. He's not anywhere near as good. Kamara being hurt, I think, is a big part of it. He came in that game with a ribs and a hip injury, and if you lose his big playability, he got 770 yards, rushing yards. He still led the game, but if he's not that breakaway threat, I think it really changes what there's an entire team, because that's what their offense is built around.
One thought every game. The Rams, they're beat up, and they go on the road, and they lose to the Bears, who get to 2-2. The Rams fall to 1-3.
They do. You can't lose. You just keep losing as many players as they are losing, and they could do a lot of things. A very creative play calling is keeping their offense going, and they still got 94 yards out of Williams and 224 out of Stafford, and they got 82 out of Tutu Atwell. You remember what we did last year, but they're incorporating him in there. But the Bears have got to give them credit that they're playing a lot better defense, and they're finally getting to figure out what they have with Caleb Williams. It's taking a little longer, obviously, than Washington has with Jaden Daniels, but I think his trend is moving up.
One thought every game. Minnesota might be for real. They went on the road into Green Bay, win the division game, and withstood Jordan Love throwing for almost 400 yards.
Jordan Love, that's just, I had him on a fantasy bench. He's not going to be on the bench on my fantasy team at all again this year after doing that. He's banged up and going against Minnesota with what they've been doing. That's just fantastic. And to be able to do what he did, but the Vikings, yeah. Sam Darnold, I do an MVP odds article every week, and he's right near the favorites now. He's like plus 1,300, and he is a perfect fit for the offense. Look, now he's got Jordan Addison to go with everything else. The Vikings, they're for real. I think I wouldn't, if you said Super Bowl odds right now, I'd say they're the NFC favorite.
Oh, wow. By the way, the Super Bowl odds did come out a little earlier for them, and they have gone from 28-1 to 14-1. They're not quite the favorite. Detroit is still ahead of them, and San Francisco, but Minnesota is now the 3rd shortest odds in the NFC. By the way, 4th, Philadelphia at 16-1. So Vegas doesn't think that Philadelphia has cratered out quite yet. One thought every game. Pittsburgh, what happened to their defense against Indianapolis? Oh, by the way, they didn't have to face Anthony Richardson. It was a real quarterback.
Imagine that. Flacco tears that team apart. Their defense did not play well. Their defense, they played well, but they'd also played some infos. And to go over there against Indianapolis and Flacco, why isn't Flacco a starting quarterback? I don't understand this. He leads Cleveland to the playoffs last year. What he does here, there's a lot of teams right now. I can look at a number of teams and go, I know it's short term, but he would be a better quarterback. But can you imagine Denver? Denver with that defense? Can you imagine? I know Denver, we'll talk about them in a second. I know they're playing better. But can you imagine how they might have done the whole game and things? If you could sit Bo Nix for a few games or a season and do that, I don't understand why Joe Flacco's not out there, because he's the story of that game.
One thought every game. Denver. How about Denver? 10-9. They've won back-to-back games on the road. I don't know if the story is more Denver winning back-to-back or what's up with the Jets. And now it just came out, that Garrett Wilson is frustrated in the offense. He says they're not trying to do enough things there. So you got a lot of wide receivers complaining around the league.
Yeah, offense is real bad this year. Rodgers, after the game, said that both of his legs were hurting. I read where he said both of his legs were hurting. That'll happen when you're in your 40s and you're trying to play a quarterback. Remember, there's only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history who are aged, the 41 season to throw 500 or more passes in the season. And it was Warren Moon who did it once, and Tom Brady did it. And Rodgers, okay, maybe he can get there and things, but 40-0 quarterbacks is tough to do. He doesn't look like he was trending better, but he doesn't look like what he was in Broncos. Hey, they've got a really good defense. They've got some talent on offensive league, but this is a team that if you can't go going against their defense, they can win 10-9 games, a few of them this year.
One thought, every game, big shootout, Cincinnati, Carolina. Cincinnati finally gets a win on the road. I guess Carolina is showing, hey, we're at least a competitive football team. You're not going to come down here and just automatically walk in with a win, but it's a win that Cincinnati needed.
Yeah, Carolina, again, winless, but they're trending in the right direction now that they have solid quarterback play, because it's like, hey, the rest of their team they're still a pretty bad team, but that gives them a chance to be competitive. But, yeah, for Cincinnati, Jamar Chase, holdout and all that, did not look good in week 1. In fact, Cincinnati, think about it now, that New England loss is just looking worse by the week. It's just that should be a 2-2 club, and that loss may come back to haunt them all year. But Burrow's looking back to what he does. Chase looking back to what he does. Higgins is back. They're starting to get healthy. But the problem with the Bengals, they've got a really banged-up defensive front, and they're going to get in a lot of shootouts if they can shore that up.
One thought every game, Jacksonville looked like they were finally going to win a game, and then here comes C.J. Stroud, 345 yards. Houston, they come back to win it. Jacksonville 0-4. All the questions for Doug Peterson, and then he says, hey, we can put you in position, but we can't make the plays for you. The heat is on. Doug Peterson, Houston wins.
It's a tough thing for ownership and management when you've got a coach and a quarterback, and if they're not meshing, and we know that Peterson's really good coach. He's got a Super Bowl win, and we know he's a solid coach. And Lawrence, now all the questions of, okay, is he what everybody thought he was? He's not a franchise quarterback, and if you're Jacksonville, you can fire the coach. That's fine. You can move on from him. But if Lawrence isn't your answer, you're going to have to move on from him too. And if you've got a good coach and your quarterback's not there, maybe you need to do something else. But, Jacksonville, they just don't have the answers to the questions. And right now, the C.J. Stroud, he's one of those MVP candidates as well. 345. And again, I don't think Houston is playing as well as they're capable. I think they're still playing well, not playing as well as their talent level is. This team could be even better. And if they are, that's a scary proposition in the AFC.
I agree with you. I think Houston still has more in them. All right, what about Washington? They go to Arizona. The game's not a fair fight. 42-14. Jaden Daniels' numbers don't pop off the page, but Washington dominates the game in the desert.
He has been a phenom. He's right now, if you say offensive rookie of the year, okay, it's him, and who else? It's absolutely him. He's playing fantastic. His completion rates are out of this world. He's getting up to where, again, mentioned the NFL MVP article. He's right up there. He's there's favorites and long shots. He's in the long shot section. It won't take long for him to play like he did, and he'll be in contention for MVP. He's playing that well. They didn't have to have him have off the charts numbers because Arizona is really that bad. They're a well-coached team, but they still have they've got talent issues.
One thought, every game, San Francisco banged up. They did get Debo back, but Brock Purdy had a good game. Juwan Jennings has another good game. Oh, by the way, Christian McCaffrey, no problem. Jordan Mason has a big game.
Mason has a good game. Kittle had a good game. They're getting people back. And again, they didn't have to have Debo have to have a big game. They haven't really incorporated Ayuk. They're another team to where, they win 30-13. But imagine if I get Ayuk fully incorporated. Imagine if Debo gets back being healthy. If Kittle stays healthy, you get McCaffrey back. This is still a team that could ascend upwards. But to show that they did what they did, they should win that game 30-13 from a talent perspective. And to do that says, okay, the 49ers, we're worried about them, about how they played so far this year, but they're leveling off to where they should be, and that's good news for them.
One thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Couple more to go. Cleveland and Vegas. Vegas wins at home. All the problems there. DeAndre Adams. All right. Devontae Adams, excuse me. He wants to be traded, but they won without him down there. Cleveland. The problems continue for the Browns.
They do, and it's partly injury and partly that. But you go over their talent level. You got Elijah Moore. They didn't have a Joku, but you've got him. You've got Ford. Now you're going to get You're going to get some players back, and you've got the quarterback, you've got Deshaun Watson. So you've got a lot of different things. You go, okay, this should be a talented team, and they're not. I just think that it's a matter of Stefanski has a certain type of thing he wants to do, and the talent for the team is something different. And I think if, again, why did you guys let Flacco go? Why didn't you keep him? Because right now you could put him in there and you could solidify your situation, and you might be done with Watson, but maybe you need to be, because I think I think we're seeing every week that experiment's not working out.
It's amazing that these teams, the amount of ineptitude decision making they make is crazy to me. To say that, hey, we can't bring Flacco back because Deshaun Watson might be a little hurt by that. I mean, are you serious? Read the room, Deshaun Watson. You haven't been very good for the money. The ROI hasn't been there. Kansas City and the Chargers, all sorts of injuries, but they hung around this game. But Kansas City keep finding ways to win as they continue to lose bodies.
There are 3 players who have had 1 turnover in every game this year. Patrick Mahomes is one of them.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is the other.
Yeah, I forget the third one is. There's 3, and he's one of them. And Will Levis is now added to that list. So, I mean, that's bad company. That's what Mahomes is playing like right now, and they're winning in spite of it. I mean, it's like, yeah, the Chargers are banged up, and you look at the Chiefs' schedule, it's like, this is not the toughest schedule. Like, you look, okay, now you've got the Rice injury, Kelsey's still not playing well, and now you're going to Kareem Hunt. Okay, a little bit better, but, I mean, that's going to be your ground game. Kansas City's got some problems, and the Chargers weren't. There are too many injuries to be able to take advantage of that. But if the Chiefs keep getting a few more injuries like this, or if the attrition starts hitting it a little bit more, I think the idea that they're just dominant team. I can see a number of teams right now in the league be better than them, even though they're undefeated.
One thought: every game Sunday night, Baltimore 35. They blast the Bills 35-10. It was Derrick Henry almost 200 yards rushing in the game. It looks like Baltimore has found their way, and the Bills finally fell back to the pack.
They did, and then that first run, I went back and watched it. I got the coaching film and thing. I watched all that first run that Henry, that long touchdown. Bills don't want anything to do with tackling him. Their secondary players, you did not want anything. Rasul Douglas, I think you could see he's just like, I do not want to have to tackle this guy one-on-one. Don't make me do this. It was a thing of beauty, but they can do what they do. They've got the power running that they can do. They can incorporate their passing game and such. That's a big thing for them, and I still don't understand, though. He's got 199 yards. Why aren't you calling timeouts? Why aren't you trying to get the ball back for him to get 1 more yard so he can set the record for 200-yard games? He was tied for first at 6, and Derrick Henry could have had 7. It's one of those things where come on, guys, get him that extra yard. Do what you have to get him that extra yard. It means going for a 4th down. You were up 35-10. You didn't need to score any more points.
One thought every game, Monday night, doubleheader. One game really good. This one, not so much. Tennessee all over Miami. The quarterback situation in Miami so bad. Yet, Huntley had 96 yards, which was the best passer in that game, and they still lost. I don't know how that's even possible, that you win a game where your quarterback doesn't even throw for 100 yards, and they didn't win. They won handily.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And you look at it's what is it? 2.7 yards per play. It's really, I mean, they're not good if you're playing that 4-string quarterback who doesn't really know your offense. McDaniels are really creative, but again. McDaniel, why did you go in this season? You had Tua, and then you didn't have anybody as a backup, and you know Tua's not the most durable guy. Why don't you get a Flacco? Why don't you get somebody like that? Belichick said to him a couple of weeks ago where he was talking about that a team that has any team that, like he was talking about the Steelers saying, hey, you got Russell Wilson as a good backup, and in case Fields gets hurt, said they have one of the best quarterback situations in the league. I think he's one of the guys who realizes you can't have a lousy backup. I've said for years, the Raiders back in the 70s, when they had LaMonica, they had Blanda, and they had Stabler. They had the great starter, they had a Hall of Fame backup, and they had a guy in development. That's what you want. That should be your goal. And right now the Dolphins had one guy who barely would make that list. I don't understand it, because this is what's going to happen to you, Miami, if you lose that starter who tends to get hurt.
And the other game last night, one thought, every game, Seattle-Detroit, what an entertaining game. Back and forth they go. Geno Smith, almost 400 yards. Kenneth Walker had a big game. DK Metcalf had a big game. But it wasn't enough. Detroit wins 42-29. Jared Goff, we're still waiting for him to throw an incomplete pass.
Yeah, we definitely are. And the Seahawks had 38 first downs. The NFL record's 40. I mean, they were that close to the NFL record for first downs, and yet they still only scored 29 points, which is, I mean, it's a lot. But, I mean, if you're putting up 38 first downs, you'd think you'd score more. The Lions were able to do some bend but don't break, but the Lions showing We can run the ball. We can pass the ball. If we got to get in the shootout, we can. The Lions don't want to be in this sort of situation and it seems like that's where they are because Carlton Davis just wasn't the answer at cornerback. And they should have known that, too. His pass coverage metrics were not the kind to say, hey, he's our shutdown guy. But the Lions are showing they can win shootouts, but they got to not get in them. But Mike McDonald, if you're him, you got to be really worried because you thought you had a really good defense. And then I know the Lions are good, but 42, you go back to drawing board because you got to do a lot better than that.
All right, one thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. He'll be back on Thursday as we get ready for Week 5 of the NFL, which all starts on Thursday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. NFC South, Tampa, and Atlanta is your Thursday night game. We kick into the London games this week, so we'll have 9:30 football on Sunday, and that all starts right here on 97.3 ESPN. Casey, we will see you on Thursday.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, there he is. Casey Joyner, everybody, from The Athletic. And, of course, one thought every game. We do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. He's brought to you by Cooper University Healthcare. They're doing something extraordinary for families down the shore at Cooper University Healthcare. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Basketball